All right, it is 6 o'clock. We'll call the meeting to order. All members are present, including our student representative. Move on, no additions to the agenda. So we will then move on to the approval of the agenda.
Make a motion.
I'll second by Thomas, second by Cheryl. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion has passed. Moving on to public comment, we do have one tonight, so I welcome Sarah up to the seat. And while she is coming up, I'm gonna read as a reminder for our procedural some guidelines. First off, remarks should be addressed to the board as a whole. Even when communicating difficult issues, it's important to remain respectful and defined in our communication. A 5-minute time limit is established for each participant. In general, board will not respond to the information received during the public comment. In order to communicate in an effective manner, please keep public communication to 2 or 3 main points and articulate those points directly and clearly as possible. Lastly, superintendent will follow up with all participants of the public comment. Just we'll start the timer.
Hello. I didn't think this was going to be as nerve. My name is Sarah Sagi. I have a 5th grader here at Paynesville, and along with Trish Williams' daughter, they've been downhill skiing with the Powder Ridge D team, downhill alpine race team. And it's getting close for them to be transitioning into a varsity high school league. And there is one, it's called the Breakaways. They're a co-op. Right now they have 11 schools associated with them. Becker is not on here, but they were added last year. And then Glen and Spicer wants to get added for this coming year also. So we were told that we had to come here and hopefully get approval of adding sports for boys and girls. And then we have to get together with the tech athletic director and the cathedral athletic director, sign the paperwork, and then hopefully get added to the co-op. And there's a breakdown in this and how it works. There's really, besides approving the sport and paying the initial fee to adding the sports, which I think is less than $200. And you guys might know more of that, adding hockey and gymnastics and all that in the last few years. You might know that more than I do. The athletic director from Tech resigned in January. So they have a new one starting July 1st. And she's very excited to help start this process. Her name is Hillary Johnson, but she does not start until July 1st. So she was going to try to start getting going on this, but obviously she's doing her other job also. This is quite expensive, I've been told. So on here, they have all the coaches. They have their own booster club. The parents pay the fee for the athletes, which last year was $600 for the year. And that includes all the when they go to the races. And parents, we need to cover the travel, to getting our kid athletes to practice, getting to the races and all that. So there's no, besides just signing up, approving it, there's no additional fee to the school. And then that will allow the students to get out for race day and participating in the state tournament, which a couple of years they did go to state. A couple of years ago, they did go to state, the breakaways. And so we just would like to offer another sport along a winter sport. You know, not everybody likes to play basketball, and I guess there's gymnastics and hockey. So it'd just be another great option for the kids.
You have an extra?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Yes, we'll follow up with you.
Okay.
Well, thank you for coming.
Okay.
All right. Moving on, we'll move on to the consent agenda.
Cheryl, any comments on bills?
No, everything was pretty cut and dried. I did notice that, we, paid a consultant to help us with, our jobs. Yep. And that bill came in,
Yep.
and that's all underway.
It's all underway. We're nearing the end, and we were hoping to have had 2 more comparable school districts come in for the market comparisons, and I heard from the 2 superintendents today that they weren't going to be able to complete it, so we're moving forward with the analysis that we have.
But it sounds like they came up with job descriptions and
The job descriptions are complete. We're looking at the pay ranges to see how we compare with the market for comparable rules and responsibilities, and then making sure that throughout the district, everything is aligned commensurately with the job descriptions. So yeah.
that's the only thing that jumped out at me was, I realized that was in the final stages.
Just getting to the end. Yep. Okay. From the other consent agenda items, I'll just add, this is the time of year where we take a look at career increments. So those are there. We have a new hire and a non-renewal of a probationary non-licensed staff member. This is our added section of 3-year-olds that we don't have enough to fill for next year. So that's the non-renewal. Donations, I want to just pull forward. Again, some donations have been received. We've had a number of our money from the Dick Dillon Fund has come in for both the general fund and then also the Dollars for Scholars, which is scholarship revenue. And then you'll notice a number of early childhood playground donations that have come in as well. And we also had a softball donation from the Booster Club for bats. So, oh yeah, this does say for bats. So again, I'm always a little bit overwhelmed when I see the support and the donations that come into the school district. Our community really is supportive of the work that's happening within our district. So thank you for the donations that have come in.
Any questions, comments? Hearing none, looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda. Second.
Motion by Ron, seconded by Bruce, or Jacob, sorry. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion is passed. Moving on to communication items.
So I want to share a document with you today. So my entire day today has been spent in this room. I had an opportunity to be part of the Rural Child Care Initiative program. And today was kind of the launch meeting. Jacob, I'm going to follow up with you because we had a couple members that weren't able to join. So I think it might make sense if we want to have a conversation about that. But one of the things that I wanted to just share with you is, again, kind of the why behind this conversation and how important it is for us to take a look at childcare. And I think I shared with the board about a year ago that we were in our Paynesville area zip code, and that really encompasses most of Paynesville. We were about 172 slots short. So when you think about slots for childcare, it was how many that were eligible to go, would have been eligible, and then you talk about providers. So this document here is, I'm going to share this one actually, so that hey, that's interesting.
It's been updated.
It's been. Just looked to make sure we're recording. We are. Okay. Okay. So this document really kind of walks through our current data around our childcare. And so a couple of key pieces that I'll point out is is this included the cities of Paynesville and zip code and Roscoe. Within those data sets, there are 10 licensed family childcares. We have 0 licensed childcare centers. Here is the cost of daycare. You're going to see that for children under 5 with parents that are working, there are 268 families or 268 kids. That means that when you take our 10 licensed daycares that could meet the needs of 82 kids, that leaves us with 197 openings, okay? Of those openings, 42% are infant and toddler. So infant is gonna be, that's categorized as 6 weeks up to, depending on if it's a individual family license or a center, it's either, I believe it's either 16 months or 18 months to be infant. And then the toddler goes up to either 33 or 36 months, okay? So when you look at that, 42% of that, of those 197, if you look at our zip code, 196, if you look at our school district, are needs within that really early infant, toddler, childcare. So the conversation today was really to start thinking about how do we engage our community in this conversation to understand what is the experience of those 10 family licensed childcare providers. What does that look like for them? How do they, how many do they turn away on a regular basis? What are the stressors that they incur? How can we support as we look at meeting the needs of childcare across our community? How can we also support the work that they're doing? And then really, what is the best solution for our area to meet the needs of our childcare? So today was just the very first beginning process. And I brought this forward to share today because I think this is an update to the data I shared about a year ago, which was 172, and now we're looking at about 196. Now, the one piece that they did share with us today is that your childcare data is spot on and good the day you take it. There's a lot of fluidity and a lot of movement with kids, and we do know that as a school district. We know that. And in childcare, it's even more pronounced. So, but this does really give us another validation that our concerns of what we're hearing and seeing are valid, and it's a good conversation to engage in about a solution. So I just wanted to share that with you. Next steps, some things that are going to be coming up is that the planning committee is going to be talking about hosting a child care provider appreciation night to, again, recognize and acknowledge and support the work that's happening by our current daycare providers. And then also start hearing from them what are the barriers and what are the things that you're experiencing that are problematic within the realm of childcare. Over the course of the summer, there's going to be a town hall event for all of our community. Our entire community is going to be getting a survey of information about childcare, what their experiences have been, what are they hearing, how has this impacted the workforce. There's just a lot of information gathering that is going to be happening, and I think it's really important that the school district is part of that conversation. So it was a good, just kind of foundational start today. And I will continue to keep the board updated regarding next steps, timing, when we have an opportunity to provide input. But this is just the most recent information that came out that was gathered in March of 2025.
So we're not the only district that has this issue. So where can somebody read about it? Somebody's figured out something or solutions to move forward. Is there something we can read ahead?
I don't think anybody's figured anything out. I think
Someone figured it out.
I think that's part of the problem.
So
is
you're
that-
telling me in the whole nation,
That's the
nobody has
state
figured
anyways.
this out?
No, I think what it is I think every community has to understand what their specific community needs are. I think that's the process that we're going through right now. Because what works in our community, Bruce, might not be what would work down in Wilmer or over in St. Cloud. Because if there's so as a, for instance, some of what we're given today as examples could have been like a major hospital who has a daycare on site for their employees. Well, would that meet our district or our whole community need? Probably not, right? Or so those are some of the examples that were given. So that's where I'm saying it's really community specific. There are a lot of this process has been implemented across the state of Minnesota. And there are multiple communities that we could reach out to say, what do you know and how have you learned about solutions for your community? But there's not necessarily that's part of what makes it so complex is that there's not this is the answer, because it's gonna be very community specific.
Ma'am, I'll look it up myself,
I would,
but we got 50 states, and
Bruce,
so
so
I think Minnesota is something special.
I would say what's likely a bigger issue is much like we have a lot of legislative control over the district, legislative things that are put down in district, daycares across the state of Minnesota do as well. And Minnesota is probably a little more unique than other states, maybe surrounding states that don't have as many legislative pushes on their daycare facilities. So Iowa may not be as big of an issue as Minnesota, but they don't also require the same licensing that the state of Minnesota does for our daycare. So we lost a lot of daycares across the last 5 to 10 years. And it started when my kids, it probably started before my kids were going to daycare, where daycare people were just done. They didn't want to continue with the requirements of the state. And so
And each county has their own rules.
So counties license family daycares and centers are licensed by the state. So when you have families, like a family daycare, what happens in Stearns County isn't necessarily what happens in Ojai County or Meeker County for a family daycare. So I would say that there's been a lot of mandates that have certainly impacted and influenced individual childcare families.
well, I think to get around that, there's a lot of, I don't want to say private or families that just only take on a couple of kids. I mean, that's going to be more and more common just because they don't want to put up with all the red tape. But
And I believe a daycare can take on 2 families without being licensed.
So we talked a little bit about that today, and those are some of the things that will be shared at the town hall about like what are the specific rules or how does that apply to our community. There are circumstances where if that becomes known, that person can get into some serious issues. So I think that there are specific regulations of you can have like another family member and then one family friend, blood relation and then no relation. So it's just
Confusing.
it's a hassle. Yeah, it's a hassle and it's very stressful to find daycare. But I don't want to see, how do I want to say this, private, a lot of grandma and grandpa taking care of kids and stuff. And we're fortunate in this area that that's kind of the normal.
and families there's a lot of families taking care of family, for sure.
I just hope we're not going to rub people the wrong way going forward on this. But
Well, I think you have to remember the district is just one
there's a lot of
member. I mean, this is multiple entities having the conversation.
And just talking from personal experience, there's just not enough out there. I mean, there are a couple of, like you said, families where it's 1 or 2 people, but if you don't know them, do you really want to trust your newborn kid with them? It's, which is partially why they went to the licensing system. So it's a little bit of how much risk do you want to take? And this doesn't impact just families too, when it starts pulling parents out of the workforce to watch their kids, that hurts businesses too because they have less work. So I think this is not just a family issue or school issue, this is a whole community issue.
And I think it was very important, going back to what you had mentioned, because you started presenting this data to us about a year ago. So we're looking at the possibility of losing 200 students at some time if we don't work and start taking a look at daycare and what we can do as a community. Like I said, the school district is just a very, very small percentage, or very, very. It's one of the cogs that's in the wheel to figure out what's going on, and we have to take a look at our interests as far as a school district.
One of the pieces of data that they also are going to present, and I was maybe a little premature to share this out with you, but I was excited to kind of give you that updated information. One of the things that they presented for us that came from DEED is really the workflow within Paynesville of how many workers come into Paynesville and how many go out. So in Paynesville, we draw in about 1,100 workers and we have about 600 workers going out. So if we could meet some of those daycare needs and those workers come and put their kids in daycare here, we have some opportunity to have that feed into our district as well. So there's just some really good information for us to pay attention to and look at. But over the course of time, in the next few months, there's going to be a lot more opportunity for us to engage in conversation about what are the wonderings that we all have surrounding daycare. Okay. So that's really what I have for the administrative report for today. From a financial report perspective, I'll just share out. I wanted to just cast this one more time and make sure that people make sure that our community that's watching has an opportunity to kind of see and just be reminded of what's here. When we were walking through some of the conversations with our district advisory committee, there still continues to be question about some of like how the school district is funded and where the money comes from and where it goes. And so I think I just wanted to kind of circle back and be able to show individuals. So this document is a revenue document. And so this tells where all of our sources of revenue come from. And if individuals want to see on that first tab in July, they can look and just hover over state, and that is our per pupil aid, compensatory funding, concurrent enrollment, and special education funding. And I'm not going to read all of them because you can see that on each of those lines. But this is just a reminder about the funding that's coming into the school district. And then as you scroll over, so this is a running balance and summary of the year. A little bit further. So March is updated. March is closed out. So you'll see that our 24-25 adopted dollar amount there. And you're going to see for state revenue as of March 31st, 24, we've received about 61.7% of our anticipated revenue. Okay, so this is again just a document that's here to try to help explain the ins and outs of our finances. As you get over and scroll down, these are just other ways that the funding is broken out. Okay, so these are some of our specific funds, like our food service fund, our community education, operating capital, long-term facility maintenance, and tech levy. Okay, the construction fund. There's not a lot here unless we're doing. This is where when you have bonded projects and you're doing a big construction project, that's most of where that sits. Debt service is because we're paying off money, or we have money bonds because of our previous projects. Okay, so I just wanted to take a second to walk through, and I'm not going to go super in depth, but just again to remind people that if you ever are curious about where is the money like coming from, these are our funds. Okay. And on the flip side, so then I'm going to come back into the expenditures and kind of walk through that. So again, now these are going to be how we spend our money, okay? And as you take a look at, again, on that July 31st tab, if you hover over salaries and wages, that's just pretty straightforward. That's just the general paycheck, okay? Employee benefits are gonna include TRA, which is our Teacher Retirement Association, PERA, which is our Public Employee Retirement Association, insurance, 403B, which is our tax sheltered annuity, FICA, LTD, and life are required taxes. So if you take a look at that, you're gonna see what I'm gonna get off of there, what our expenditures have been for that subcode. Purchase services, you'll see what those are supplies, equipment and projects and other expenditures. So again, this is kind of a breakdown. Everything that we do within the school district is coded so that we can track where all that money either comes in or goes out, okay? So here's a breakdown. So all of these are gonna be included up here, but this is just cutting the pie in a different way. So administration costs, direct support services, regular instruction, extracurricular activities. So again, you can hover over and see what each of the breakdowns are, and then you can track out to see how do we compare. So I'm gonna again come over to March 31st. We'll do a look at, so in our salaries and wages, for example, we'll just take that line. Here's our estimated budget. And if you come over to the first column, March 31st, we are at about 60.01% of our anticipated expenditures, okay? So again, that this is just a snapshot, a way to try to help community members see and understand how the money comes in and how the money goes out of the school district, okay? So I'm gonna stop sharing that. And that's all I have, unless there's any questions. Otherwise, I'll turn it over for committee reports.
Is there something in that report that we can share with the district advisory group? If they're not watching this meeting, they don't see it.
I could email it out and just walk them through.
Or even if it was a point in time. Because that's where the question came up. And then we had a bunch of people in there all asking about the same thing. It summarizes it nicely there.
Yeah, I can put that
Because
together.
when do we meet again? It'll be right at the beginning of next, it's school year,
Yeah,
next year, so I wonder if that would be a good time. By that time, we'll have our budget set, and kind of start walking it through each time we meet, once a quarter or whatever that is, so twice a year.
yeah, we'll meet again before the start of the school year, but we didn't set the next meeting yet.
Right. Yeah, that'd be good. Good idea.
Sometimes if you stay more current with the question,
Yep.
it answers more questions
Yep.
than trying to remind them what the questions, why it was there.
Right, yeah.
4 months from now.
Any other questions? Great, moving on to committee organizational reports.
Staff met earlier this month and it was a lot of updates about waiting to hear more updates, I think. That's just waiting on the state, so nothing drastic from there. A couple good speakers, representatives showed up.
We had the district advisory committee. It went very well. Great information was provided from elementary school and from secondary school. Taking a look at the FastBridge data and what those numbers look like. Some positive trends going forward. And then as Bruce had mentioned, some of the questions that had come up. So it's a very good committee. I think to grow this committee. The community members, the ones that are on it, will start having, I think, a better understanding of how this school district is run, and to have an understanding, especially from a budget side. It's not an apples to apples type thing. There's just a lot that plays into it. But once you start figuring that out, you understand how judiciously our district is staying on top of being financially responsible for the tax dollars. So.
All right, hearing nothing, moving on to student representative report.
Hi guys. So for NHS, I'll let you share that first.
Sure.
Or start yapping. Okay, for NHS, they're wrapping up the school year by selecting more board members for their thing, and they're just doing some activities with the elementary, and SAD's also doing some elementary activities, and they're helping out with the field day and fun 5th grade orientation day when they can't come to the high school and get to see what it's all about. And for student council, we're getting ready for Fun in the Sun. It's on May 14th, 2025. It's the day where we sign our yearbooks and have fun outside. And we're getting in applications to be in student council next year, due by April 23rd, 2025. And we're doing the senior appreciation meeting, and then we're preparing for homecoming next year. So then we're more prepared than we were this year. Then we're gonna pick out our president and co-president so that it's not a fight. That was fun. Then we're also looking for our dress up days next week for like homecoming and that. And then for FFA, we're getting ready for state, which is this weekend actually, the 27th to the 29th. And we had drive-in style where everyone brought their tractors and their old cars. And then we were at the senior living to drive by with the tractors and the cars. We helped at the dinner when the national commander came to the Legion. And we had members honored at the regional banquet held at Battle Lake. And we have Egg Day coming up where we have a petting zoo and have an industry speaker, and that's on Wednesday, May 7th. And then we had the chapter banquet, which student council members can attend, is on May 18th, 2025. Invitations will be sent out. And there's stuff on the bottom. Of like fun.
NHS, that's National Honor Society. NHS, National Honor Society.
I would like to make a comment, and it has to do with the Honor Society. So I did have a chance to meet with the students today and their leadership, just to pass on a thanks to them for what they were able to accomplish going out and presenting the preschool playground to non-profit organizations and the amount that they had pulled in. When Chris O'Brien and I took a look at it, this is as we were setting the meeting up, some of the donations are starting to come in that was showed earlier. We were looking at about $9,300 that they were able to bring in. But because of the presentation, the way that they put things together, I think there might be another 5,000 out there that came in because of them. So Chris and I need to take a look at that. If so, that'd be about 14,300 that National Honor Society was able to bring in. So a big thanks to their efforts, their leadership. It's something that, as far as with the next year's, whatever they want to do, however they want to do the organization, but they really stepped up this year. Thanks to them.
Moving on to old business, second reading of the policies. Just as a reminder, policy 524 and 524-5 are not recommended for approval on this. For a motion.
I introduce a motion to approve policies 401, 402, 403, 404, 406, all off, 407, 410, 412, 417, 503 as recommended by the policy committee and presented at first reading.
I'll second.
Second by Thomas. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Moving on to new business. Resolution non-renewing probationary teachers.
So this is so Ms. Welly was a 1-year contract and Mr. Clocker was the 4th grade position that we've talked about reducing from 4 sections to 3 sections. Both of those individuals have been contacted and communicated with by their building leadership. So
Does that resolution needs to be read for the approval? Okay. So I make a motion, a resolution relating to the termination and non-renewal of the teaching contracts of the following probationary teachers. Craig Clarker and Arlene Welly.
I'll second.
Seconded by Thomas. This requires a roll call vote.
Jacob,
Aye.
Thomas.
Aye.
Carol,
Aye.
Rachel.
Aye.
Ron.
Aye.
Bruce.
Aye.
Cheryl.
Aye.
Motion passed. On to class of 2025.
So I am going to pull this up and share this. This is always a fun list to share. Our class of 2025 graduates that would be looking for approval. We did have 2 students that graduated mid-year. Those students, they opt not to participate in spring activities or walk graduation, but they are also included as part of the graduating class of 2025.
Make a motion to accept the presented class 2025.
Second.
Second by Ron. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Moving on to the 24-25 board committee revision.
So the only change here was the negotiations, the 2 negotiations that were discussed at the last work session.
And so I'll make a motion to accept the revision, the committee revision.
I'll second.
Motion by Gerald, second by Cheryl. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Moving on, the 24-25 revised budget.
So these have not been changed since our work session and since they were last presented. So I did not plan to walk through the revised budget. It is again linked in here for everybody to see, but this is the formal document. And then this presentation have all of the green considerations. So again, I didn't plan to walk through it unless there are any questions, but I have not received any questions since has been presented.
Make a motion to approve the revised 24-25 budget as presented.
I'll second.
Second by Cheryl. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Moving on, 25-26 budget section information.
So this is where the sections would be set. And again, you'll see the recommendation for 25-26 is to carry 4 kindergarten sections and 3 sections throughout the rest of the grade levels, which would put us at 40 sections across the school district.
I make a motion to accept the section next year as presented.
Second it.
Second by Ron. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Moving on to the roof project update.
All right, so I'm gonna invite Troy Miller to come up and give us an update. So as they've gone through the preliminary status of the roof, I'm not gonna get too deep. I'm gonna let him really speak to the intricacies of what they're finding and what they've come across, because it has allowed us to possibly do an additional phase with some cost savings if we're willing to expend some additional funds. And I think I wanted Troy to be able to walk through some of the considerations and then hear what the board would like to, what direction the board would like to go. So Troy, go ahead.
When we started the roofing project, budget in hand, we defined the scope of work as primarily replacing a piece of roof that was set by Ken that had been discussed with other folks. To that, we added an alternate to replace the roof that is above Natalie's room.
Yep.
Not sure what that is, but, and we also are repairing masonry on the mezzanine levels. So there's spots where the brick is cracked. There's brick that's falling off underneath the mechanical units for the louvers. We're replacing all of the sills for the louvers and making sure that they're shedding water in the proper direction. We are also replacing the soft joints, which are the control joints in the masonry. And we're taking care of putting some caulking around the top of a prior roofing project that wasn't flashed completely. And so to keep water out of the wall, that work is being done as well. So all of that work came in on budget, and we were happy that we were able to kind of extend the dollars so that you were able to do all those things. As we've been going through, we had conversations with Roof One, and in those conversations, we said, is the insulation good? Does it all need to be replaced? Because insulation right now is not cheap. And so they did 15 cuts where we went in and we looked at the insulation at 15 locations. All of it appeared to be good with the exception of 2 areas. Those areas will be replaced. The rest of it would be just roofed over, and we would provide a new protection board over the top. The savings from that effort in terms of not needing to replace the insulation that's still good, that still has quality R value, we would take a deduct, and with that, Ken and I were up looking at the roof above the auditorium, which is in dire need of replacement. We think that the insulation is good. It appears to be through the tests. And the long and short of it is it's been relaxed once before, which means it kind of cut the perimeter to try to allow it to move a little bit more than what it had originally had in terms of flex left. To relax it again, I think is about $35,000. And if you look at how long that would last as a fix, and you're already past the warranty of the roof, you kind of question, is that good value? And so what we did is we asked Roof One to pull together what it would cost to re-roof that area. It's about $116,000. If we were to take the savings from not doing some of the insulation on the current project because it's good, there's savings to be had there. And ultimately, the district would need to come up with about another $65,000 to replace the roof on top of the auditorium, which if you're looking at cost per square foot, it's a very good value. Part of the reason is because they're already here, they're mobilized, they would just continue the work and get it all done. What it entails is basically taking all the rock off that's on the roof currently, putting down a new membrane, and then putting new rock on top. And they can't reuse the rock because when they take it off, oftentimes it'll split and crack and those become sharp edges, which then could damage the new membrane, so they need to put new rock on. We have to go with that type of system, even though most of the other roofs have been converted to mechanically fastened or an adhered roof. We can't do that in this location because of the fact that the deck over the top of the auditorium is acoustic. So all of those fasteners, all of that asphalt that would be used to mop it down if that was the choice would basically damage the interior finishes and potentially hit conduit and things like that. So we will be going back to a ballasted roof just with a whole new membrane, reflash it, and do what needs to be done. There are other portions of the roof that need to be done, but at this time, it's probably not the best value for the district long term. The other thing to keep in mind is it looks like the legislature is going to pass an opportunity to go to the taxpayers and levy for roofing, same way you do LTFM projects, as long as those dollars are over $100,000. And so in 2 years, that might be your first opportunity to do it, and that would be the appropriate time to do the rest of the roofs across the district. But I think that where the roof is right now on the auditorium, it should be done before then, and to expend $35,000 to relax it, to try to get it to the 2-year mark, might be just putting good money after bad. So I set up the contracts so that they can work 2 ways depending on how the district wanted to budget it. So the first way would be to have it all paid for by June 30th, which might be stretching things a bit. The other way I set it up was that the change order would be written such that the work at the auditorium would be done after the June 30th mark, so that it would then roll over to the next fiscal year for LTFM. And that way it all fits within your budgets without taking the hard hit this fiscal year. So however you wanted to structure that is how I've written the contract currently.
So I have two questions, one for you and one for you, a comment for you. If this dollar fits our roofing budget for next year, if we do this. Second thing, in all the years I've sat here, I always wondered if we tore off good insulation. Nobody, I've never seen a report anywhere where somebody came back and said, well, the insulation looks like it's good, you don't have to tear it off. That I put a lot of credit to in this whole deal. I've never heard that before. I've always wondered, you can't tear off a whole roof and tell me the whole thing is rotten. But that's what we've been dealing with. And if we're gonna exercise the savings by using your smarts, where we can pretend like we figured it out, and we can save some money and get that job done, and it fits our budget, I'm 100% game to go forward with this. And I thank you for a decent analysis on something we don't have to throw away.
Roof One's been a good partner. I've worked with them a number of times before. They're a quality group, and so it's been just kind of a treat to work with somebody who comes at it with the same ethics, so to speak, to say, hey, time out. Let's make sure before we throw something away we don't need to.
So now you're okay with this in the budget? That looks like it works.
I think it'll work, and I would like to build it in for next year for our LTFM money. And if they are willing to do it, I think it makes good sense for us to do it.
Now we're saving money for the district.
Yeah, and if you look at where you were originally, and when you started the conversation with the roof, and you look at what you've been able to accomplish with the masonry restoration, adding the scope for the additional roofing area, and right on down the line, I think you're getting some pretty good value.
Are you making a motion then, Bruce?
I'll make a motion that we go ahead with this.
I second.
Is that what you're looking for?
I second.
Harold? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Very much.
Yep, thank
By
you.
the next meeting.
Can I make one more comment? If Kenny had something to do with questions back and forth, I'd like to put a little feather in his cap too, that we're looking at saving some money and being efficient with these dollars. So we know that he's directly involved in a lot of that, but
His work's just beginning. I'm not done. He's got a whole LTFM plan to fix. Work on that.
thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Troy.
All right, moving on to the 25-26 calendar correction.
So there was a clerical error, and I don't know how it was missed, but it was missed. And so this calendar does have the last day of school as a 2-hour early out. I know we had talked about it in the draft discussion that came forward. So this just, I'm gonna look and just make sure, but I am certain it should say on the last day of school that it is a 2-hour early out. So I would be just looking for an approval to change the draft.
Motion.
I'll second.
Motion by Ron, second by Cheryl, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Moving on to review of upcoming meetings. Comments, questions, additions?
The only piece I'll just make a note of is that we will start beginning negotiation sessions soon. And I know that there's been a lot of patience as we've been trying to wait for the legislature, so there may and may not be anything before those next meetings, but I didn't want to have the fact that they weren't identified be a holding pattern, so just know that that's gonna start in the near future.
But some of it we don't have to wait for,
No,
because it's usually all the language, and then we figure out the finances, and
Yep.
then maybe the legislators got it figured out, but
we'll get things moving.
Nothing? Nothing, moving on. For a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion.
Second.
A motion by Thomas, second by Bruce. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. We're adjourned.